Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first module on purposive communication, communication in multicultural context. At the end of this module, you should be able to describe the nature and functions of verbal and nonverbal communication in various and multicultural contexts, and you're also expected to present situations of effective communication in multicultural context. So, to begin with, we would like to define communication as a two-way process that aims for mutual understanding, wherein the parties involved do not only send and receive information, news, ideas, and feeling, but also create and share meaning. It is a way to connect to one's surroundings and environment and to send feedback as well. Communication is also a process of imparting and exchanging ideas with and without the use of media. For you to have a deeper understanding of communication, let me just give you the further discussions on its nature. First, we say that communication is a process. So, whatever communication model you are using, communication is made of different elements, and it passes through a process from conceptualizing the message to getting feedback after giving a message. The second nature is that communication is symbolic. Symbols are used to represent things, processes, ideas, or events in ways that make communication possible. Japanese language, for example, has its own set of characters which are symbols that represent sounds and meanings that when you combine them, a message is formed. Koreans, Chinese, Thai, Greek, and Indians, for example, have their own writing systems through symbols. Thirdly, communication is both a discipline and liberation. Communication makes use of language that is used to convey ideas in various disciplines and fields of studies. It is flexible that it gives communicators the freedom to use words that are necessary for communicating with others. It also allows exchange of ideas, cultures, of languages that unify people. Communication is a discipline. As a field of study, it teaches the learners how to convey messages as well as how to effectively interact using the theories and principles of communication. Communication is liberation in the sense that it may serve as a way for the communicator to express his ideas. It also frees the mind to react, suggest, oppose, agree, or even reject ideas. Without communication, you will be limited to what you are capable of as well as the way you think and feel. It also liberates someone from ignorance of the rights, duties, responsibilities, and cultural diversity. Communication allows a person to use language to express his ideas. Chavacano, for example, is a Philippine dialect that is very similar to the Spanish language. Chavacano expressions just like coche or car or abuelo or grandfather and feo or ugly are used by the Chavacanos from Zamboanga and the Chavacanos from Cavite. The song Porque, which is a Chavacano song written by Maldita, became viral in the Spanish-speaking country, which is Mexico. This is an indication that Mexicans understood the Chavacano lyrics in the song and that it said Philippine dialect does not sound Greek to them. In this sense, through Philippine music, the hearer or sender of the message can sing along, provide feedback for the lyrics of the song that make up the regional language. This is considered as liberation from ignorance of art and other relevant fields of studies. So, there are different ways in which we can communicate our thoughts and feelings. Words may be used to express our joy, fear, anger, and excitement. This means that we communicate verbally. There are times that words need to be substituted or emphasized by our hand movements or facial expressions that are called nonverbal communication. So now I'm going to explain the differences and the importance of the verbal and the nonverbal communication. We have the verbal messages in communication. Verbal messages pertain to the sounds and words that you use when you communicate. It covers the choice and the order of words in a sentence. Just like what happened in the case of Saki and Haley, the difference of the sounds that the Japanese have in the language as compared to English sounds brought differences with the way the meanings were interpreted. The intended meaning was positive, but the way it was expressed verbally brought confusion to the receiver of the message in the case. This means that words may not have the same meaning to everyone at all times. Words also change their meaning over time, and so communicators should know how to select the most exact words to express their messages accurately. People who may be speaking the same language could still experience communication problems when trying to understand verbal messages. This is because not all words mean the same thing to all people. The word left may pertain to one's location, or it may also refer to the past form of the actual word leave. Words in verbal messages can be denotative or connotative. Denotative meaning is what you will find in a dictionary, while connotative meaning is an emotional or personal response to a word. When you hear the word free, its denotative meaning may explain that it is something that you get without the need to pay. But your connotative meaning, based on your emotional response, could be that it is liberation or being away from boundaries and limitations. Language is dynamic. There are many words that evolve in our daily communication. The words that you might have used before may have already evolved to something new. Say, for example, the word sinta may sound too formal to address someone that you love. Today, there are many words that are used to express the meaning of the said word. The words like mahal, sweetheart, bebe, and be are just among the few which mean beloved. People and media are responsible for the changes in the language that we use. There have also been words that were created to express one's thoughts when communicating with others. They're called slangs. Slang is informal language that is unique to a particular group. They are words that change most often, and they are used in informal conversations. Usually, they are used by persons who share common things in their culture. Cultural diversity is one of the causes for the presence of slang in communication. The words like whatcha or what are you, gonna, going to, labia, love you, and gimme, forgive me, are just few of the words that are commonly used in today's conversation. So, as a communicator, it is your responsibility to be aware of the meaning of words and how they change over time. You have to be careful in choosing the words to say when communicating and using the right tone of voice as well. Now we are going to talk about nonverbal messages and communication. What are those? Nonverbal messages are the messages that you use to express your ideas and emotions without using words. They are also made up of tone of voice, body language, gestures, eye contact, facial expressions, and proximity. Following are the ways in which we can communicate nonverbally. First, we have the tone. This includes the pitch, volume, and the inflection of your voice. Next is the posture. This is an important part of body language. Sitting up straight conveys confidence, while slouching conveys apathy. Eye contact or oculesics. This is one way to show interest or sincerity. Glaring is different from staring, and so we have to be careful when using these two in different situations. Misuse of eye contact could lead to miscommunication and eventually to a fight. Gestures. These are hand movements used to emphasize a point. Putting your palm on your chest means that what you are saying verbally is coming from the bottom of your heart. Tapping the table means you want to give emphasis on what you're trying to say. Proximity. This is the distance of the message sender to the receiver. It can demonstrate aggression when the speaker is too close, or fear when the speaker draws back. Intimacy is shown by the closeness of your distance to another person, and formality may be shown if you are speaking to someone without being too close to him or her. There will come a time when you will have to leave your place to perform some duties and tasks. Some of these tasks may require you to communicate with people of other nationalities. That is why, before leaving your country, whether for travel, academic, or work purpose, you have to be ready to be culturally aware and sensitive. Now let's talk about communication in intercultural domains. Culture is defined as a total of the inherited ideas, beliefs, values, and knowledge that contribute to the shared basis of social interaction. Moreover, it also refers to the complex collection of knowledge, such as folklore, language, rules, rituals, habits, lifestyles, attitudes, beliefs, and customs that link and give a common identity to a particular group of people at a specific point in time. Accordingly, communication may differ from one culture to another. Every country has its own unique communication style. The communicative style of individuals from the Philippines differs from that of the people from Korea. Also, what we consider good in our country may be looked up as bad or prohibited in other countries. So here are the acceptable definitions of intercultural communication. According to Tintuni, intercultural communication happens when individuals interact, negotiate, and create meanings while bringing in their varied cultural backgrounds. For some scholars, intercultural communication pertains to communication among people from different nationalities. Still, others look at intercommunication or intercultural communication as communication that is influenced by different ethnicities, religions, and sexual orientations. We have different characteristics of competent intercultural communications. So hopefully the following tips will give you some information on how you can survive when you work in another country someday. So first, a competent intercultural communicator, according to the World Bank, is one who has the flexibility and the ability to tolerate high levels of uncertainty. Also, the communicator should have the reflectiveness or mindfulness, open-mindedness, sensitivity, adaptability, and the ability to engage in divergent thinking and systems level thinking, or how each one in a system or organization influences each other. Please take note that in addition to culture, other elements such as gender, age, social status, and religion must also be taken into consideration when communicating with others. Refrain from showing bias when talking to someone through the following tips. First, you need to avoid stereotypes or generalization about a certain group. For example, women who speak so loud in public are usually generalized as squatters or informal settlers because they are viewed as rude and unschooled individuals. Challenge gender norms. Avoid using he and man to refer to a general group of people. To remedy this, you may use plural nouns or rewrite a sentence to avoid using pronouns. The use of his or her is also acceptable. Do not talk down on younger people and the elderly. Also, you have to be sensitive to the religious practices of others. You have to be polite at all times. Do not belittle people you perceive to be on a lower social class than you. Nobody wants to be in Saki's situation, where he was misinterpreted by Haley because of their language differences. Saki might have failed to familiarize himself with how the word love is said in Haley's country. This is the reason why overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, have unconsciously adjusted to different communication settings and situations. To avoid communication problems, they are mostly required to undergo the Commission on Filipino Overseas, or CFO, pre-departure orientation seminar, or PDOS. According to cfo.gov.ph, those Filipinos who wish to leave the Philippines to settle permanently or to work abroad need to attend the seminar. The topics in the seminar cover important cultural aspects that one must be familiar with before leaving the Philippines. It is because the government wants Filipinos to be prepared for multicultural communication. Filipinos are known for being hospitable and warm around the globe. Hence, wherever they go, culture shock is minimal and they can easily embrace cultural diversity. Here are some important information that you need to know when you visit the cultures of the following countries. How do you communicate in China? Greg Rogers, for example, wrote an article on how to work around the language barrier in China. According to him, communicating in China is often a challenge for first-time visitors who are traveling independently without an interpreter. If you do not know how to speak Mandarin, the language barrier can be maddening. Charades sometimes fail, and when you move your hands for chopsticks, your waiter might bring you a pencil. So, here are the tips on how to behave or to communicate in formal business meetings. So first, you have to be aware of the Chinese desire to preserve harmony. Hierarchy is also a very important factor how the Chinese communicate. When speaking to a superior, workers must generally phrase their words carefully. Speaking without asking for permission might lead to poor treatment as well as reprisals. Most importantly, the concept of face must always be considered when communicating with the Chinese. They prefer to avoid negative and emphasize the positive. When dining together, Chinese businessmen routinely praise one another with compliments and toasts. Gifts are also given on many social and business occasions in China. These are accompanied by words of goodwill. In conversing with the Chinese, it is important to have a clear understanding of context. Now, how do they communicate, or how are we supposed to communicate in Korea? When going to South Korea, there are things that one must be aware in terms of communicating verbally and non-verbally. Their communication pattern is generally indirect and at times verbose. They have the tendency to rely less on words and are very keen at a speaker's posture, expression, and tone of voice to catch the message. Just like the Chinese, they are particular when maintaining harmony throughout the conversation. Their speech style may be described as indirect. They also use less gestures, and silence is an important and useful tool to them. Pausing before giving a response is an indication that someone has applied appropriate thought and consideration to the question. This is one way of showing politeness and respect. Smiling can mean that one is feeling ashamed or embarrassed. They are generally not very tactile with one another. However, girls may walk hand in hand, and male friends tend to touch each other. South Koreans do not point with their index fingers. They rather use their entire hand to point to someone or something. During a discussion or friendly conversation, eye contact is necessary for the person you are communicating with. When receiving something, use two hands or your right hand. In terms of gestures, it is considered rude to make a fist with your hand while placing the thumb between the middle and index finger. Sneezing is considered rude in Korea. What about communicating in America? Well, Americans address each other informally and address each other by first name basis. No academic or job title are used unless one is formally introduced. Americans are energetic and positive in terms of communication. Americans usually speak in the present or imperative tense with lots of action-oriented words. They often use expressions such as make it work or instant solution. Meetings are usually informal. People also shake hands or just say hello when entering a meeting room. One usually sticks to the agenda and one must be time conscious. Meetings are only held to discuss topics that are usually outlined, to obtain information and different opinions, as well as communicating decisions taken at the top. Americans hate it when their time is wasted, and so you have to be at least 30 minutes ahead of the call time when meeting an American. Americans expect for a speaker with a loud voice.